This is Ask Joe once again. Ask your questions and I will answer them.
Off to a rough start today, but I will say thank you to those in the live chat. That Dave Grohl idea was super fun. Now I want to do an entire Dave Grohl thing. Hi, my name's Joe Gilder. Welcome to Ask Joe. I've been running Home Studio Corner since 2009, and I'm not going anywhere. If you're new to home recording or you've been doing it for longer than I've been alive, either way, I'm here to help you get better recordings out of your home studio. That's what I do. And on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Central, I hang out here live on Ustream. I do silliness for about 10 seconds, and then I talk for a minute. Then I answer your questions for a really long time. And if you're here live, I even answer more of your questions after the stream is over. So make it a part of your weekly routine to come hang out with me. You can see how I mess up the intro like 18 times and then we start. I think it's fun, but anyway. So today I want to talk about briefly, before we get into your questions, this idea of course correcting. I talked last week about how you should chase out problems, and this week I've been seeing a lot of taking a couple steps back and looking bigger picture at things like making music or how I run my business and how I go about even running that business and what I do and how I structure things and what's valuable and what's not and how those things change over time. I think the change over time is the bit that is probably the most difficult to wrap your head around and certainly the most difficult to address. So to use an example from my world, I've been on YouTube since 2009. YouTube's only been around since 2006. So I was fairly early to the game, not because I'm super intuitive and can see the future. I just was like, hey, there's this thing, I'm going to use it. Just happened to be using it at a time when not a lot of people were. And it's a different world now. So what I used to do in 2009 that was maybe valuable for people, in some ways is still valuable, but it changes over time, right? There wasn't even the technology to do live streaming in 2009 in any sort of way that was actually usable, and now there is. And so I'm finding new ways to connect with my audience, to find ways to make value and find ways to provide enough value that I get paid for, if that makes sense. I know people don't like to talk about money, that's gross, but that's a part of what we're trying to do. Like if we're going to release music, we want to do it in a way that can maybe generate an income, or at least a lot of us do. And if your goal isn't to make an income, your goal is to have people listen. And that requires you to, in some ways, in a lot of ways, to be a salesperson. You got to be a salesman, saleswoman. You got to find ways to convince people to invest at least their time, if not their money, then at least their time to listen to your stuff. Just the fact that it's free is no longer cool anymore. I remember stories of years back when Derek Webb started Noise Trade. It was before that. He was on a record label and he said, hey, let me just give this record away for free in exchange for an email address. And at the time, this was years ago, that was revolutionary. And they got a huge response out of it, and that he kind of leveraged that into that Noise Trade website, which was, for a long time, was just a way to give away music for free in exchange for an email address. Well, now with things like Spotify and Apple Music and all the other ones, Deezer, I saw that one, I don't know what that is. There are lots of ways to listen to music for free. So if I'm over here saying, I really want you to give me something in exchange for my music, I want you to give me your email address and I'll give you a free download. A lot of people, myself included, don't have time for free downloads. I don't want to download it and then figure out how to sync it to my phone so I can listen. If you said, hey, it's over in Apple Music, then I'll go look you up and I'll listen. So, you're wanting me to exchange my email address to then go do extra work to listen to your music. You're making it too hard for me to listen to your music. Versus saying, hey, go here. You already have it on your phone. I'm right there. It'll take you 2 seconds and you can listen. Now, you may think that's not fair. You may think that's not the way it should be. You may think years ago when people were selling vinyl, people were willing to pay for it. Whatever. Sure, that's the way it was. It's not the way it is now. And so if there's someone over here who says, I'm going to insist on selling my music, and someone over here says, I'm giving it away for free. Okay, better example. Let's say Joe Gilder over here says, my music, I put my heart and soul and money into it. I am going to sell it. That's fine. I have the right to do that, to say I'm only going to make it available after purchase. Dave Grohl over here says, I'm giving all my music away for free. It's available on Spotify and iTunes. I'll also sell copies and special versions and all that, but the music itself is out there for everyone. If I'm going to say, hey, I'm not going to put my music up there, I'm going to make you pay for it, and Dave friggin' Grohl is going to let you listen to his album for free, isn't it interesting? It's kind of like I'm saying my stuff is better than Dave Grohl's. That's not the way it is. If anything, you could flip it around. Dave Grohl could charge for his music and not stream any of it for free, and I could give it away for free. But it's the other way around, and that should make you think. Boom. Oh, I think the boom game is getting on. I'm getting really good with that boom game. Okay, now's the part where I get into your questions. So ask them in the chat. If you asked it already, ask it again. Because I'm not scrolling back up because there's too many of you suckers. But once you ask your question, try to leave it. Don't keep asking over and over because it fills up the deal. Josiah says, not to be impatient, but when are you announcing the new Mixed Together song? I think this week. I got about 100 submissions, so I got to go listen. And what'll probably happen is I'm just going to kind of click through. Once I find one I really like, I'm probably going to choose that one. I might not listen to all of them. So pray that I randomly click on yours and then also that I like it. And then I'll get those kicked off. I'll get tracks from you and all that. Super fun. There's a pretty good community out there about recording techniques. Do you have any advice on turning a portion of a garage space into a makeshift studio? I may have to use modular walls. Would that work? You can make any room system work. You just got to make it sound good. And whatever your budget is, that's what I would use. Graham Cochran, for example, has a 2-car garage. He turned one of those bays into a studio. So he had someone build a room with air conditioning and floor and lights and all that in there. Not that expensive of a gig. And now he's kind of in a separate space. So yeah, you can go all the way to there, or you can just be in the garage with some gobos and, carpets hanging over mic stands, and you can make it work. I'm not an expert at that, so that's probably all I can say about it. I like the way your guitar sounds. Can you tell me the name on your guitar? That's a Gibson J45. I like the way it sounds too. Won't stay in tune for longer than a song. And that's the dance that we dance together. Do you use Studio One Android app? Nope, I'm an iPhone guy, and I don't use the app for that either. I probably should, but I don't. Tom says, I've got business cards, website, and portfolio of free work. What's the next best step for paying clients? You need to get out there and meet paying clients. So having a business card, don't really care about that. Having a website, don't really care about that. Portfolio of free work is cool. I'd be interested to know what's in that portfolio. Is it good work? Does it demonstrate the kind of work you're trying to get? If it doesn't, then I would work on that. After that, you got to go where the musicians are, or find a way to make yourself so valuable that they're coming to you. So as an example, and I know this sounds so pat yourself on the back, Joe, but it's a pretty good example. I'm sitting here right now streaming on a Tuesday afternoon from my studio, and I've got 135 people watching. Now, is that an astronomical number? No, of course. If Graham Cochran was doing this right now, would he have more? Yeah, absolutely. He's just so pretty to look at. But the point is, over the last 9 years, I've somehow created some sort of value to convince 135 of you to waste an hour with me in an afternoon. And then of that 135, I know Ben and Caitlin from Homestead Collective are here. They've actually hired me to do work for them before on multiple occasions. Now, was it from Ask Joe? No, it was from another connection, but it was all through the existence of Home Studio Corner. Do you need to start a blog and a Home Studio Corner and do tutorials to get clients? No, but the lesson here is you need to be valuable. Now, that could look totally different based on your personality and what you want to do, but having a business card and a website and waiting by the phone for it to ring isn't going to happen. Go where the musicians are. That's kind of what I did when I started my website. I went to some forums and went to other places where musicians were, like the Home Recording Podcast. What is it? The Home Recording Show with John Tidy and Ryan Canestro. And Jesse Zoller at the time. I approached them. I said, hey, you got a podcast on home recording. You're awesome. Can I be on it? And they said, yeah, sure. We'd love for you to be on there. I got a lot of early followers and attention from being on that show. So go where the musicians are. So go to where they're playing music, but also go to where their attention is. So if they're paying attention to me, for example, maybe you pitch me to do something for me, to offer me some sort of service, and then I talk about it. Now, if you're going to send it to me, there's a good chance I'm going to say no. So that's fine too. You got to do that about 100 times before you get something that maybe turns into something real. So I don't know. I think I think the value is the name of the game. If you become valuable, then there will be ways you'll start to discover ways to make money on being valuable. A great example, I see his name here in the chat. Ben Holmes is one of my VIP members. He's been a VIP member for a really long time. He's over in the UK. He and I have never met face to face, which is a shame. Ben, we got to make that happen. There's a good blob of you over in the UK that we need to all meet. Anyway, but Ben has been a VIP member, and then he hired me to critique a lot of his songs as he was working on them and releasing a bunch of music. So we got to know each other a little bit better. And then he started offering to play drums for free on projects inside the VIP members area for other VIP members. I don't know if he's still doing it for free, but that's not the point. He did that for a while for a lot of people and provided a lot of value. Next time they need drummers, who do you think they're going to get in touch with first? Probably Ben. And if he says, hey, I've moved on to charging this much for this, then a portion of them are going to say, no, I was only in it for the free thing. But a handful will probably say, you know what? It was so great working with you. You've made my life so much better. You've demonstrated your value. Shoot, I'm going to send you 100 quid. How much is a quid? I don't even know. What is a quid? Is a quid a pound, or is it different? Tell me in the comment. But you see what I mean? Like, there is a lot of value. And if it seems like a lot of work, if it seems like doing a lot of things for free, that's what it looks like. There are so many successful people that'll say like 80% of what they do, they don't get paid for. But it creates enough value that 20% where they actually are making money, it makes it worth the whole deal. So those are my thoughts on getting clients. It's probably a lot more than you thought. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe it sounds easier than you thought. The good news is you have the ability to connect with endless amounts of people. You just have to find ways to do that. Any recommendations on recording strings? Cello, violin, mainly. If you can get your hands on a ribbon mic, it'd be nice to have, especially for cello, in addition to just a normal condenser or something. Ribbons are especially good on violins because violins don't sound that good up close. I mean, they do, but they don't. So that kind of helps cut down the harshness because it's a darker sounding mic. Otherwise, just spend a good amount of time on placement. Try to capture, don't try to get it too close where all you get is that hissy sound of the bow on the strings, but not so far that you get a lot of room sound. And multiple mics might be your friend, so you can try a couple different options after the fact. Those are a few things I like to try. At what stage do you send your mixes to the clients that you're mixing for their approval? Good question. So usually it's just I get done with mix one. So mix one isn't like a half mix. It's like they could write back and say, this is great, call it done. And I say, great, it really is done. In the past, I've done mixes where here's mix one and I'm not really finished. I know there's like 4 or 5 things I need to address, but I go ahead and send it. It never works out super well because they come back saying, whoa, this doesn't feel done, this and this and this. So what I really meant to say was, hey, here's just the direction I'm going, give me some feedback, and then I'll go finish the mix, but I pitched it as a mix one. So there are times where if you're going on a tangent and you're doing something really different than what they sent you and you're not sure they're going to like it, there are times where I'll stop and send what I've worked on, say, hey, this isn't finished, but this is the idea, the direction I'm going. What do you think about that? And get feedback. That can be nice. But generally, most of the time, I just work on it until my mix is done. Then I send it. They have revisions. We do 3 rounds of revisions if they need it, and then we're done. How do you get that BG sound on your vocals? I didn't know I had that BG sound, so you may have to be a little more specific. Because I don't know what you're saying. Who are your recording engineer greats that you learn from, and also what are your singing influences? I don't study a lot of the recording greats. I just kind of listen to music and then get ideas from it. I couldn't tell you who produced it or engineered it. I probably should be able to. I just don't. Singing influences, probably a lot of Stephen Curtis Chapman growing up. I tend to sing like him sometimes. Also Jeff Buckley. I don't sing like him, but man, that dude had some pipes on him, and I love it. Says Joe, what are your thoughts on Mason Ramsey? I've heard about the Walmart Yodel kid, but I haven't seen him. I think he's grabbing attention right now, and if he's smart, he will leverage that into more attention and create a career for himself. And I hope his parents are smart with the money stuff, because that much money at that little age, I know he doesn't have millions, but that can be that could be a lot. So other than that, I have no clue. I've actually not heard the kid. Okay, so a quid is £1. All right, so why don't you just say pound? I guess like dollar and buck. It's $10. $10. Okay, I'm with you. Can I send you a song of mine and you redo the vocals? I am certainly open to it. Go to my contact page or just email me, Joe at Home Studio Corner. We can talk about the project. I want to take a listen to it first, but then I can send you a quote. Nate says, condenser mic pointed at the F hole on a ribbon and a ribbon mic a few inches further back on a violin works really well. Good to know. Does the Studio Live mixer sync up with Studio One? Not any Studio Live, as far as like control surface. The version 3, which I have here, does. And I can confirm that. See, look. Boink. Never mind. Oh, I unplugged the thick. Anyway, yes, it does. That's a bad example. I'll be doing videos on that. But the previous ones do not work as control surfaces. When you double your vocals. You're asking, were you the one that said, how do you get that BG sound? The big key to being able to double a vocal is to be able to sing it again really close to how you did before. So if you're not consistent vocally to do that, then don't bother or practice on that. So like it has to be almost the same. So the beginning of this episode, if you haven't listened, go back, rewind to the beginning. I sang this silly Dave Grohl thing, and then I sang it again. And I was able to sing it almost exactly like I sang it before. That's how you get that sound. So you need someone who knows what they're going to sing and sings it almost exactly the same. That gives it that kind of thickness where you can tell it's two vocals, but at the same time it kind of sounds like one tone. But you can get there, it just takes practice. Somebody says, yes, you totally sound like Stephen Curtis. I'll take it. If you get a mix and they only give you a stereo drum stem, how do you handle drum sound? That may be too loud. EQ, multiband. Yeah, I mean, I'll use any tools available to fix stuff there. So multiband's a good example. If like kick is too loud and everything else sounds great, EQ can sometimes just simple EQ can do it. But when I get tracks like that, I usually kind of chill because I realize I make sure they understand, hey, when you just give me a stereo drum mix, there's not much I can do. I can't make these drums sound wildly different. So I set that expectation. If you're wanting the snare to be a different tone, I can't go in and mess with the snare. I can only mess with the overall drum sound. So then if anything, I'm actually a little relieved. Not relieved, but I set that expectation. I do the best I can, and I just move on. I don't try to make it something that's not possible to be made. That sentence was confusing. What's the best way to hook up an HP60 to the SL24? See, the HP60 is their PreSonus 6-channel headphone amp. If I was using that, I would just run, it's got 2 separate mixes. I would just have 2 separate stereo mixes coming out of an aux channel. Okay, either one of 2 things. I would have one of the mixes just be your main output, your main mix, so you can always just feed them the main mix. And then the other one would be like a customized mix. Or if I didn't do that, I'd have both sets of mixes be 2 different headphone mixes. So I could have one for the drummer, one for the bass player. Or one for drums and bass and one for everyone else, and then they can blend between the 2 mixes if they want more drums and bass. Or maybe one just has drums and bass and one has everything else, and they can blend between the 2. So you're not having to do quite as much headphone customized mixing on the fly. But yeah, I don't know. I'd probably try it that way and then realize I didn't like it and then move on. How do you like the fader port? I love it. I use it all the time, specifically for transport and having the fader control. Now that this does some of that, I can see myself not using this as much, although the fader port has rewind buttons that I use a lot when I'm recording. I'll stop recording, rewind a couple bars, and hit record again. There's no rewind on the Studio Live button, so that one thing keeps me using the other one. Of course, you can use a keyboard shortcut to do that as well. Hey, Joe, I find it hard singing in tune when wearing headphones. Okay, when not. Any tips on overcoming this? Most likely, Paul, your problem is, and this was me, when first time I ever sang with in-ear monitors, I got done at the rehearsal and the person in charge said, hey, could you hear yourself? I had no idea I was singing off pitch and apparently it was bad, and that's just embarrassing. The thing as a mix engineer that makes it hard especially is you're hearing it and you want to put the vocal in your vocal mix. You want your vocal level to sit in the mix like you're used to it sitting in a normal mix. That's not loud enough to be able to hear the pitch, I found. The vocal needs to be louder than everything else, like pretty loud. So the options are turn everything else down, turn the vocal up, or both. It should be not painful, just it should be a lot louder. If anything, the music should be quieter than you're used to listening, and the vocal should be at a nice loud level. Then you'll be able to hear yourself better. That's the only way I've been able to do it. Obviously, taking one ear off, using open back headphones, things like that can help as well. But getting the headphone mix is probably best. If I'm working with a musician and they're singing and I hear them getting off pitch, I won't tell them, but I'll just push up the volume of their vocal in their headphone mix. And usually that solves the problem. If they're singing too timid, I'll sometimes pull it back, so they have to sing a little bit louder. So there's lots of tricks you can do with just the level of the vocal, but those are things I've done to improve my pitch when singing with headphones. It's a grind, and it takes a lot of practice. It's not going to happen overnight, but keep practicing it. On your 11 rack, do you use the XLR or the SPDIF out? XLR. I just go analog out of that sucker. Brian K. Moore, you are the man. He said, I'm the man. That's nice. Any tips on lead vocal treatment in general? How you approach them to make them sit perfectly in the mix? In general, if the vocal sounds good to begin with, I'll compress it first with like an 1176 if I want an aggressive sound. Then I'll EQ out some of the rumble if there's like a little bit of muddiness and things like that. That's my general approach. I know it's very simple. The bigger approach is make sure the recording sounds awesome. Then the mix gets really easy. Not really easy, but that's a step. How do you get a vocalist in the right frame of mind when recording a lead vocal? Prior to putting on the headphones and stepping in, when I hit record, I tense up and choke. If you're by yourself, it's hard. You just kind of have to figure it out. When I'm with people, and Ben and Caitlin are here from Homestead Collective, I don't really like to get super serious. I like to keep it light. Now, with some people that maybe doesn't work, but I like joking around, like, silly voices, making jokes between takes. If they make a funny sound, like, just be like, well, that was funny, like, not embarrassing, not like tearing them down, but just lighthearted. I feel like when you're smiling and you're relaxed and if I mess this up, we'll just say, oh, that wasn't great, let's do it again. There's way less pressure. Also, make sure the musicians aren't on the clock. If they know they've got to be done or they're going to pay you more, that doesn't help either. Franco says, hey, Joe, thanks for making this live video. You're welcome. I'm mixing an album right now. All the instruments in my mix are sounding great, but I need to sacrifice some of the frequencies to let the mix breathe. Do you think volume is more important than EQ? I don't really understand the question. If it's sounding great, I don't think you need to do anything. So you said it's sounding great, but you need to let the mix breathe. I don't know what that means. It could mean everything's just too loud and the compressor's working too hard. If that's the case, just, turn everything down or dial back the compressor. But otherwise, I don't know what letting a mix breathe means. If it's the kind of thing you heard someone say and you think you need to do it because they said it, I'd say don't. Just do what sounds good to you. I don't really know what that means. Can you recommend an analog mixer with a maximum budget of $230? Nope. Sorry, I don't know gear. I really don't. Call Sweetwater. They will give you tons of options. How do you actually use or apply flangers and other plugins or the like? All I ever find is how to use reverb and delay. Well, the reason is most of the time, most folks are only using reverb and delay. Flangers, I'll use occasionally on like a cool background vocal part or something where I'm trying to create a cool effect. But having it on something prominent is just straight 80s. So a lot of those effects, chorus, flanger, those can be cool, but for the most part, when I hear them used, especially for people getting into audio, they sound super cheesy. So that's part of why I don't use them. Cat at the door. What? Is there a cat? There was a cat last episode. Joe, your thumbnail looks like you have a lock of flowing black hair. I don't know what. Y'all are losing me. 1176. How do you set that up, and do you use it with other VSTs? How do I set it up? I don't know. I turn it up till there's an amount of compression I like, and then I adjust the output. I don't know. There's not a lot of settings on 1176. The attack and release times are pretty fast, regardless of where you set it. So, yeah, I don't. Oh, you mean my hood? Yeah, that was a silly picture. All right, let me see if I found any questions that I missed. This is from Jake. Says, Joe, when you're arranging overdubs for a song you've written, do you play each instrument all the way through or write parts for individual sections? So, yeah, that's a good question. A lot of it is feel. So if I'm recording an acoustic kind of thing, I know it's going to have the acoustic guitar all the way through. And then if I'm thinking I want to have another acoustic or two more acoustics, one pan left and one pan right, then I'll just start playing. And then if I really feel like, hey, this needs to be out in this section, I'll stop. And then if it's one that's panned to the left, then when I play the one on the right, I'll do the same and I'll stop at the same time. A lot of it's feel. I like to have a general idea and then just play and let musicianship actually play a part as well, so it's not completely planned out. But yeah, usually I'm playing all the way through. And then if I'm playing through and I try something on a part, like the bridge, and I try something, I like what I was trying, but I didn't play it well, then I'll go back and punch that stuff in. But I don't really jump around too much. I want it to, just the way I tend to think about it is I want to perform the song every time. So I play one guitar, I perform it. and then I play another guitar and I perform it. And then when I'm singing the vocal, I want to sing it all the way through usually. There's nothing wrong with singing the choruses and then singing the verses. It just feels more disconnected to me. I'd rather perform the song. And if I'm going to be performing this in front of people in the real world, I can't say, hello, thank you for coming to my concert. I'm going to sing the choruses first, and then I'm going to go back and sing the verses. Thanks for watching. It just doesn't work that way. So I kind of like to treat it as much like a live performance while still taking advantage of all the technology we have. I don't have to sing and play guitar to capture it now, right? I can play the guitar first, really focus on that. Then I can focus on the singing. And yes, I could sing every word separately and then piece them together, but that wouldn't be very musical, right? What is that mixer under the iMac? This is the PreSonus Audio Studio Live Series 3. It's the 24 channel. Do you have a favorite multi-pattern large diaphragm condenser you would recommend? I really like the, I don't have one out. It's over there. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. I really like this one. It is super cheap, and it's not clean. It's very dark sounding, but it's the CAD M179, C-A-D. It's like $130. Really good on toms, and it also sounds pretty cool on acoustic guitar and vocals. It's darker sounding, which I think is kind of cool. So it's not this big, bright, overly bright thing, because a lot of times if you use a really bright mic, your recordings, when you add them all together, sound really bright. I like this one. It's cool. And it sounds surprisingly good on toms, especially when you set it to the hypercardioid pattern. And the shock mount could be better. It's not. There you go. But yeah, I use these on toms every time I record them. Joe, did PreSonus release the update? Yes, they did. Go check out their website or update your thingamajig. What would be your advice, this is from Ori, to those who want to reach out to record labels? How to come off appropriate rather than abrasive, or if you think the idea of the record label is being left in the past. I mean, I guess I would want to know why are you reaching out to the record label? I mean, even in the old days when record labels were thriving, you didn't just typically walk up to the record label. You probably found out who the A&R person was and got a relationship with them, or you got an in somehow. But I don't love the idea of the record label just because it's the idea of waiting around for someone to pick you when you can pick yourself and release music right now and reach hundreds and thousands of people without a record label. Like, I keep coming back to this because it's the only thing I know. Home Studio Corner, I've made my own record label, right? Like, Home Studio Corner tutorials about audio and mixing has given me a funnel where I can share my music with the world. So like my song Fighter that a lot of you like, you don't like it because you heard it on the radio because a record label picked it. You like it because you heard it on my videos. So I chose myself and made a record label. Not really a record label. I just made this entity that allows me to distribute my music. I don't know. To me, that's kind of cool. I would rather do that than sit around and be like, man, I sure hope Sony calls today. I left them a voicemail. That could happen. I guess you can do that if you want, but I would much rather take control as much as I can than leave it to somebody else. Because you spend your whole life waiting for somebody else to do something. Why not just go do it yourself? Master Football Lover, that's it. Hey, Joe, I'm a new viewer. I want to know how to lower my millisecond delay when I record. I've tried to lower the buffer, but it's still on 20 to 30 milliseconds. 20 to 30 is not bad. You just have to lower your buffer, and that's really the only way. But some interfaces allow you to monitor directly off the interface with no latency. If you use a mixer like this, like I do, there's no latency because I'm listening off the mixer itself. But yeah, sorry, other than that, I don't know. It depends on what you're using. Joe, what are your thoughts on pitch correction while recording to make the artist feel more confident? I've never done it. I'm not necessarily against it, but I would rather the singer get better and feel confident because they're actually singing well, than fake. Like, I'm all for using tuning, but I'd rather try to sing in tune while I'm singing. I'm a singer, so I'd rather try to sing in tune while I'm singing and get better at that. And then the thing is, you're thinking, okay, if they sing out of pitch and then they hear it back, they're going to be sad. They probably should. Like, it should make me sad when I sing badly. Like, that should affect me, and then I should resolve to get better. Like, I think that's the only way to get better. If I only ever hear it back perfectly, I have no motivation to go become a better singer. Now, it's not your job as the recording engineer to to handhold them through the whole process of becoming a better singer. And I'm sure there are people who are legit who use that. I just personally, as a singer, I would rather work harder to sing better than become more lazy and become more reliant on gear. Do I use tuning on my vocals? Yeah, because sometimes I give a cool performance, but there's a few pitch problems, and I'd rather just fix them. I'm fine with that, but I would rather... sorry, I just got totally distracted. I'd rather sing it without any help. Why have I not become a VIP member yet? I know I really, really should. You should, Steve, and I got something new coming up that's going to blow your mind. And yeah, why aren't you? I thought you were. That makes me sad. I'm kicking you off of the... I'm kidding. Hi, Joe. Love your devotion. From Holland on holiday in Greece. Zakynthos Island with crappy Wi-Fi, so I can't watch this, everyone. Aw, thanks for tuning in on crappy Wi-Fi. That means a lot. Do you know or someone who's used SonarWorks software? I know a lot of people use... Are they the ones that... Why have I not gotten to the outro music? Did you all hear the outro music come through? That's so weird. I just was blowing right through. Okay, I'll answer this question and then we'll call it a day. This is hilarious. If you're talking about the SonarWorks, that's so weird that it didn't happen. It's right there, like in. Look, I'm gonna pull it over. Let's see if it plays. Hang on. Yeah, it says it's. That's so bizarre. It should be playing. Anyway, SonarWorks, I've know people who use the whatever the app is that makes your headphones sound like different speakers or something. But yeah, I've never used it myself, so I'm pretty simple. So that's it for the day. I'm going to call it. There's no outro music, so I'm just going to say bye. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. I'll see you next week. Later.